Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of The Abroad Affair. You're here today with your co-hosts Tian and...
I'm Aliva. Good to be back.
And today we actually have a very special guest. She's a solo traveler, she's a wellness expert, and she is an astrologer. And I would love to introduce you guys to Kirstyn Lewis.
Thank you, ladies. It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. How are you today?
I'm feeling good. We're going to be feeling really good at the end of it, I hope.
I love that.
Today.
I love that. Were you nervous coming here, or do you feel...
No, I'm in the flow. I know astrologically where I need to be. So, I checked in and no, I'm feeling good.
That's lovely. So I thought... because maybe a lot of people are not so sure about what an astrologer is. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Okay, so just to start, I was brought up in New Zealand and in the South Island of New Zealand in a place called Christchurch. And I was one of three children. I was the middle child as an adopted child. And we always had a telescope on our back porch. And so every night after dinner, most nights after dinner, if it wasn't snowing, we used to go out and look at the night sky. So there are millions and millions of stars in New Zealand. It's one of the best places to actually see the Milky Way. So I grew up with these boys and around a dinner table where my family were very much into sci-fi and science. My brother is graduated from university as an astrophysicist. Okay. He still works as a physicist today in medical physics in Singapore. And my father is very much a mathematician at 85, still working today with a very keen mind for numbers. I wasn't so great at mathematics, so I took the other route, which was, stars. And I was always very into astrology, into people, into energy. I always felt very energetically connected. I grew up in a convent, a Catholic convent school, and what the nuns did for us back in the day is they taught us to be curious. So I grew up with a very curious life. I remember very early on I had a science teacher, Miss Holmes, and she was the very first woman who'd been to Antarctica. And I became absolutely obsessed with this woman because as a scientist, going to very much into a male domain and into one of the most remote places on Earth, just inspired me. So I grew up with all these people who were, in my view, academically much more powerful than me. But, really what is power?
Yeah.
So the first thing I did when I left school, I graduated at 17. I got on a plane. I'd lived in Auckland, New Zealand for a year, working in travel, my very first job. And then at 17, I got on a plane and I went to Australia by myself. So my very first solo journey. Of course, I got, by the grace of God, upgraded. So I thought, well, this is the way everyone should be travelling. And I was on my way to London, but I never quite got to London. I got to Adelaide, South Australia.
Oh, God, wow. I've got some stories there, man.
And I went and stayed with my can I say this here, my gay uncle.
Yes.
Who I thought was just the best thing since sliced bread. He'd worked in London, he'd worked in New York, he'd done, the hair and makeup for all the movie stars, for the royal family. He wore fur coats, he wore cowboy hats. I thought this guy was where it's at. Very Leonian, right?
Wow.
Scorpio, but, with all this Leo energy. And suddenly I thought, wow, he's opening up my life to this glamorous world that in New Zealand you really don't know much about. And that sort of kick-started me on a journey. And, of course, I went to work in the corporate for a lot of years in media and entertainment.
So how old were you during this time?
17.
Oh, wow.
17,
So
I
very
started
young.
working, yeah. And worked in advertising and TV and the music industry and the film industry and on the Olympic Games. And, it was, for me, some of the best years of my life because I was in my natural element.
Like a high, all of this you mentioning is like high energy places.
And
basically.
people from
yeah.
everywhere with these incredible stories, right? And people who'd really fought to follow their journey.
Yeah.
If you want to be a gold medal Olympic
Yeah.
athlete, you got to fight for that to be the best in the world on stage, right?
Yeah.
So I was starting to meet people who really understood their energy and their purpose. And just to regress a little bit, how I got into spiritualism and spiritualism first was really through a couple I shared a house with in Adelaide, and she used to carry around this book called Linda Goodman's Sun Signs. I think it's had a resurgence recently, and it was a New York #1 bestseller, and it would say, Taurus man with Cancer woman, and we'd go to page 563 and we would read and go, oh my God, this man is my hero. We'd be reading the Mills and Boon books about romance. What is our perfect man? And it was fantastic. Aquarius man with Libra women. We'd have Gemini woman with Sagittarius man. And so it was something that really brought the room together. Then when I moved from Adelaide to Sydney to work in advertising, I was always a bit obsessed with Hollywood when I was growing up. I mean, this story will circle around. And when I was a young girl, I used to cut out the clippings of Marilyn Monroe and, I don't know, Jane Mansfield. All the icons of the 50s and 60s who were true superstars, right?
Yeah.
I had this scrapbook and I had people on my wall, and it was just so different. So different from what my country was all about, right?
Yeah.
And I was living in this very cool area called Paddington, and down the road there was a crystal workshop, and I found out that this Hollywood actress called Shirley MacLaine, a number of listeners may not know Shirley MacLaine, but she was a Broadway actress, she was a dancer. Her brother Warren Beatty slept with every actress in town. He was so handsome. Everyone who hadn't been with Warren Beatty wanted to be with Warren Beatty. We'd all be with Warren Beatty because he was cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, and this was the sister of Warren Beatty, and she'd been in top movies. So if you look up Shirley MacLaine, she's wow. She'd also written a book, Don't Fall Off the Mountain, that my mother had given me. And, of course, Shirley MacLaine had travelled into the Himalayas, and she was doing meditation and crystals. And, of course, Hollywood thought she'd lost the plot, and she was a bit woo-woo and totally crazy. So I loved her even more. This is a true Aquarius marching to the beat of their own drum. So, of course, I had to go down to this crystal workshop, which I knew nothing about, to just be in the presence of Shirley MacLaine.
Yeah.
And that pretty much was the very first step in my journey to being with these people who were free to be themselves. When I was 40 years old, I had an opportunity to come to Dubai. I thought Dubai was Saudi. I'm not going to lie. I got my black out. I thought I'm going to cover up. I swear to God, I thought I was on the flight to Saudi with Emirates. And
sweating in the airport.
And then we landed in Dubai airport, 2006. And I remember seeing all the people in the Pakistani dress and the Indian dress and the kandora. And I'm like, where am I? But I felt good.
Yeah.
The second I landed, I felt like I had come home.
Wow.
And until that time, I hadn't been doing a lot of astrology. I've been doing a lot of tarot reading and haven't really been reading astrologically for people. And so when I got here, of course, astrology comes from the Arab people, right? And it was scribed 4,000 years ago in Mesopotamia and Babylonia, which is now Baghdad in Iraq. And the science of astrology sat very much alongside the mathematicians, the philosophers, the astronomers. and it was scribed at the same time as algebra. So of course I was excited because I think, wow, I grew up with these mindsets and I knew there was a science behind it.
Yeah.
So then I got right into Arabic astrology and started studying the history behind it and realizing that it really was the science of advantage. So life, it's a bit of a long answer to your very short question, but life takes us on this journey that always takes us to where we're meant to be, right?
So you said that the moment you landed in Dubai, you felt this is home. And this was even back in 2006, nothing like it is today. What do you think it was that made you feel like that?
Look, I think it's like a lot of people feel that way when they a lot of people in Dubai travel, right? We're
Yeah.
probably the most well-traveled country that I've ever come across, and I've been to a couple. Not as much as the Emirates crew, but I've been to a couple.
Yeah.
And you just sort of feel at home, and it's an energy for me. I'll talk very much about energy today. It's obviously it was very, very foreign. I mean, JLT wasn't built. The JBR was still being finished. Media City didn't exist. In fact, they were building one of the offices that I was later to move into, and it was the only multi-story building in Media City. There was not a lot here. There was still a Hard Rock Cafe, and the Palm was still being built. I came to work for a company called Nikhil, which is still working in Dubai, part of Dubai World. So we were still wearing hard hats, and we were getting in a four-wheel drive, and we needed a pass to go on to the Palm. So yeah, very Dubai Mall was just being built, and we were saying, oh, it's going to be the biggest failure because who wants to build a mall this big? And only 6 shops were being opened at that time.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have the vision coming out of our own countries, where everything would take 1,000,000 years to be constructed. A bridge would take 10 years to be built.
I think that's probably the reason, right? People were like, there's nothing here. Who wants to come here?
Nothing. And in fact, it was interesting how I actually got here. As I was working for a finance company, which I really didn't enjoy at all. But it made enough money for me to fund an education for my son. I was a single mom. And the company was going through a little bit of a difficult time, and they started to retrench people. And I knew enough about business to, when the company wants to get rid of their staff, always put your hand up first, because that's when you're paid the most money. Well, back in the day you were, because they'll pay you to leave, right? And then they'll realise that the company's still going down. So in the end, they just end up firing people. So when they said, who would like to leave? My God, my hand couldn't go up fast enough. And I'm like, pick me. And I had a check for $90,000, which is a big amount of money, which I should have. Some people said, oh, you should have bought a property. No, I bought a ticket to Dubai. I was in Dubai the very next week.
Yes,
because
we
one
love
guy
that.
in that company said, you should go to Dubai. Let me show you the building the world. And your energy would fit well. So Dubai really attracts a very similar energy where we have this can-do attitude, right?
Yeah.
We are all sitting here from different countries, different, a mix of heritage, but we all came here with the same goal. I think this country will work for my personality, my energy level. I think they'll believe in me because I believe in me.
That's
Deep.
yeah, and I think what fascinates me even more is that the way you thought back then, and this is like 2006, people still think like this until this day. Not the only difference, but one of the big main reasons is that you didn't have social media back then to even look up or search what is Dubai like? Because, for example, these days people use apps like TikTok as a search engine. So, for example, if I haven't been to Dubai, like before I came here, I did a lot of research on social media, like what are the best places to eat, to go, to meet people. You didn't have that. But the thing is, our mindsets were, we want to basically, especially if you're from a smaller town, it's like you need to get out of here, especially if you know this is not for me.
Yeah.
I'm meant for bigger things in life than the Volvo, the small apartment, all that. And it's
1,000,000%.
nothing wrong with that. I'm saying it's nothing wrong with it. But what I'm saying is,
It's not for everyone.
exactly.
I guess that's where your like a background comes in, right? Like if you've been in this field for so long, so if something feels right for you, it's right. Do you know what I mean?
And let me tell you something that happened on the way to the office that day, the day of the retrenchment, which was wherever. I had to drive an hour in traffic every day. And I remember sitting in traffic thinking, I don't want to do this drive anymore. I don't like the area I'm working in. I don't even like the company. Okay, I made some good money there. I was really unhappy. I was actually working on a hospital portfolio that I had taken from nothing, and I'd grown this fantastic hospital portfolio. And of course, that's how I ended up traveling a bit more to Vietnam, and I was like this star salesperson. And I remember looking up, and there I saw an ad for Emirates Airlines for Dubai. And because I was stuck in traffic, of course, I had to look at it, and I'm thinking, I would love to get out of here. So what I know to be true, and, I'm 58 years old now, so I've had nearly 60 years of practicing these things, is life has a funny way of putting clues in your path to where you should be going.
Yeah.
And what a lot of people don't do is listen to the silence in themselves and their world around them to really start to take that in.
I've got a question just before we dive into too much here. Like, what would you say, just to like, if you don't know what astrology is,
Yeah.
how would you explain it?
Okay, so astrology is really, I've never actually been asked this question, so I don't know whether I'm going to frame it correctly. So astrology is really the study of the constellations, the stars, the planets, as it moves through the ecliptic, which is the sky, yeah? Mm-hmm. So we have, the best way to describe it is, back in the day, they were scribing personality types in a season over a period of time, yeah? So they started to describe the cycles and patterns of the seasons and the people within these seasons. Leo, for example, in the Northern Hemisphere is summer. It's a summer sign. And let's look at the qualities of a Leo. We're looking at someone who shines bright, great at parties. They usually, they have that wow factor when they walk into the room. They shine. This is the summer. This is what people do in summer, right? We go to the beach and we shine. Leos like to be in warm climates. They function better in warmer climates.
Amen.
So what we start to look at is the patterns and cycles of archetypes based on elements, yeah? Mm-hmm. So based on a fire, an earth, a water, and an air. And we relate this all back to what we know here on earth. And the easiest way to work with astrology, the way I work with astrology, is working with those energies, the energies of those seasons based on those archetypes. And then from there, we can use it as a tool for helping us move through life with more certainty.
So is it, because for some reason I thought it was a lot about the moon.
The moon, absolutely. Look, you're right. We look at the planets. Mm-hmm. So we look at the energy of the planets. So the moon.
All planets.
We look at the sun. Mm-hmm. The universe, how we're cycling around the sun. The sun ruled by Leo. Nice and bright in the sky. Everything's shiny and bling bling around the sun. Yeah. Which is why Leos like to wear a lot of gold sometimes. And sequins. Do you wear gold and sequins? You like the sequins, you like the shiny.
Shocked that I'm not a Leo.
Shot down, but there's lots to it. Then we look at the moon, and the moon is our emotional side, okay? Which is why women, they think we're a little bit crazy, but we're cycling around the moon. If you don't take contraceptives, right, most women will cycle around either the full or the new moon. most around the full moon. More babies are born around the full moon. Hospitals, and I learned this from my father. He said, yes, back in the day, just after the war, he was an ambulance driver for a time. And he said, yeah, we were always on high alert during the full moon because we were expecting women to give birth at that time.
No way. That's so interesting.
And so you've got to remember we're 80% water, right?
Yeah.
So of course we're going to be affected. The tides are affected. We look at Venus. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. How do we receive love? It's our planet of love and romance, but it also rules money. So it's a bit of a tricky one to look out for, and it's one that men love to hear the money bit, women love to hear the romance bit.
Of course.
So we look for Venus. How is Venus looking in your chart? Where is Venus in the sky at the moment?
But when you look, is that from your birthday?
Based
or is
on
that
your time, date, and place of birth.
Right.
We erect what is called a natal chart. Mm-hmm. You can do it for anything. You can do it for a business. I do it for businesses. We can do it for a country. We can do it for our lover. We can do it for our child. We can do it for our parent. But most importantly, we should be doing it for ourselves because it's our blueprint of how we think and we act and we feel and where life's going to take us, right? So if we look at these energies, and then of course we've got a Mars energy, our sex and anger. Who doesn't want to know about these things? Who doesn't want to dive into the darkness and find out what really is driving our behavior?
To be fair, I think there's a lot of people that don't want to know. Don't you think?
Most people. They know,
they're too scared.
I'm a Taurus, I'm a Cancer, I'm a Virgo, I'm a Scorpio, I'm a Sagittarius. They know all this. But every single person who walks this planet has emotions. Every single person who walks this planet will be communicating a little bit differently from each other.
Can you tell when you meet people? Can you tell if you've been talking to someone for like, let's say 5 minutes and you're like, oh my God, there's an Aquarius right there pissing me off or something?
I can't normally tell after 5 minutes, but I'll tell you the secret to, there are 3 main planets when we start. There are some very simple rules around how you can start to put your tribe together. One, you might want to look at your ascendant sign, how you're appearing to the rest of the world. I call it the Hollywood face because clearly I love an actress. Yeah. We know that actors aren't who they are in their private life, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're going to a Hollywood party tonight, what would you wear to that party? Who would you be speaking to at that party? Well, given there's a bit of a writer's strike, it could be a bit difficult to go to one of those parties. But, these are the people who show up for their Academy Award in Birkenstocks. Mm-hmm. And there are others who show up in this ball gown that would fill the room because they're saying this is how they want to be seen and this is how they want to project to the world. And then you look at your sun sign. What is your CEO? You're a Leo, right? Your CEO is Leo. You're a good leader, but you lead with energy. Sometimes you might be a little bit sensitive to criticism. Mm-hmm. Let's look at a lot of Leos are politicians, right? So they can talk a good story. And there's a very fun way to learn astrology. I'm actually in the process of putting together some astrology workshops for the women of Dubai and the
Sign
UAE.
us up.
Yes.
So they can learn about the energy of astrology, the energy of the planets, and where, it's okay to be vulnerable and it's okay not to always be a winner. Yeah. It's okay because we're looking at cycles and patterns. Sometimes you're ahead, sometimes you're behind. We're human beings and we've got to give ourselves a break. But we also should be letting ourselves shine at the things we're so amazing at.
And proud of.
Totally. I mean, I hear women's empowerment all the time, and I'm very much an activist for women, but it's been thrown around so much that we've actually lost. What is women's empowerment? Ladies, it's not about going to Dubai Mall and buying designer clothes. You should be able to shine with whatever you put on if your heart is in the right place, your mind is curious, you're surrounded by the right people. no one is really caring what you're wearing this season, because next season it's going to be out of date anyway.
Yeah.
And ladies, you need to know this. Your beauty one day will fade. You know, the wrinkles will come. We don't need to Botox our face up so it's so immovable that no one knows who you are and what you're thinking or feeling. But if you don't have a sharp, curious mind, a global mind, you know, people are going to get really tired of speaking with you because you have nothing to
there's nothing
to offer the world and nothing to offer the room. There is nothing like being in a room at your Hollywood party with someone who is having people in stitches.
Yeah.
And you always want to go to that corner where the energy is, right? You want to go where that laughter is, where someone's telling all the jokes, you know. I mean, these are the evenings to remember, and this is what I believe astrology can bring out in people, the best of you.
Nice.
It's very interesting. It's very interesting.
I have a question. What do you have to say to people who says, this is not real, this is bullshit, because if this was real, then, you know, what do you have to say to people who are a little bit skeptic?
Well, let's take it back. I've just been finished quite a bit of traveling, and in America, I'm still getting the questions, can you drive in Dubai, and do you have to wrap up, and how do men treat you? No different from astrology. Do you think they've done any research? Do you think they've even picked up a book or educated themselves or maybe been to spoken to someone who knows better? And I always say to them, well, how do you know that? What do you believe about what you're saying to me to be true? Oh, my brother's uncle, sister's cousin went 10 years ago and they didn't like it. And I said, oh, that's unusual. And where did they stay? You always, you know, we've all been here long enough. The more you travel, the more you realise.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of people who live in fear, and the people who don't believe in astrology often haven't picked up a book. They've often read a newspaper paragraph, you know, that says, today Sagittarius is a good day for gambling and go to the casino. And they may gamble on the horses or do whatever they're doing, take a gamble anywhere in life, and it hasn't paid off because
Fraud.
they're writing 12 predictions for the world. I write predictions, but I tend to write on the energy. So it's up to you how you want to take the energy.
That is that's a good question now. That just popped into my head. How does it work when you look into predictions? Like, what can you see? Is it like tomorrow you're gonna get a new car? Like, or are you gonna meet the love of your life?
It's not genie in the
No,
bottle.
but let me tell you, astrologers have the worst luck in the world, by the way, because I channel. I'm an energy. I do a lot of energy work, and what I do when I look at a chart, when I erect a chart, so I do a prediction. Now, I am not probably everyone's favorite astrologer because every Monday you're not going to see my prediction on my Instagram story for you to read, because I read when I feel there is something to say that is important. So I do things a little bit differently. I've been doing working with astrology 44 years. It's not, people can do a course now, they can go to university and do a course, but I had to learn the hard way with books, with sitting with people, with sitting with some of the world's best astrologers, with doing the research, with going to the places, with learning about spiritualism. So my journey was much deeper than just learning a topic. And I really am here to encourage women to get in touch with themselves, to learn. And I believe through astrology, it can give you that framework with which to live your very best life. And what it's giving you is contingencies. It's giving you areas where you can be very fortunate. Times. I'm looking at cycles and patterns. I'm analysing what will happen based on history. And guess what? I have 4,000 years of history. I can, refer back to.
When were you aware, and like when did you know when to use it?
Oh, was I aware of my talent? Well, we never know as young children that we have the talent. We just know that I was a very sensitive child. I was very, very sensitive, and I was very affected by what people said about me. And I was a ballerina, so I love dance and I love music because it's a way of getting away from anyone. You can be a different character. And then, so I was always this sort of person. I remember after the Shirley MacLaine, I got married quite young, and I had a baby quite young, and I married, baby, divorced within a very short space of time. So by 24, I'm divorced with a baby. And you can't imagine, I didn't even know what to do with the child, right? Because I was a little bit of not a party girl, but I'd been working in these environments that were cool. I still had a cool job. I was working in TV network, and my mother, who I wouldn't say was a spiritual person, but she used to follow Sai Baba. I had a younger brother who had passed away, and she and my father went to India, and they found their spiritual path. And everyone has a slightly different spiritual path. We all end up in the same place. Doesn't really matter how we get there, but we're all going to the same place. And she bought me a set of tarot cards because I was struggling with depression, and I didn't want to really see anyone. When my friends were going out, I had to go home and look after my child, which of course was an absolute delight for me because I adored being a mom. I adored it. And he was my whole reason for being then. And I started playing with the cards. And I started getting into the archetypes, which gets back to astrology as well. So the tarot deck has archetypes that you're always working in, and it's always questioning you. You ask the right question, you'll get the right answer. But it asks you to look within yourself. Mm-hmm. And then I remember I'd gone to this wedding, and people knew I read tarot, but I wasn't confident reading for other people. And this girl insisted I read the cards for her, and I remember it was very late at night, and she was working at a record company that I had been working at. And I said to her, you're going to have a baby, you're going to quit your job, and you're going to move interstate or to, like from Dubai to Abu Dhabi. That will never happen, she said. I said, okay, well, maybe I'm wrong. She rings me within the month. She said, you are a witch. I'm pregnant. I'm leaving my job. I'm moving interstate.
That's insane.
And I'll never, ever forget that. Her name was Petra Sumhayes, for the record. And she was very good at her job. She was running PR for this record label. And it was insane. And then word gets around, and then I was asked to read, except I hated reading tarot because you'd get CEOs coming in, women, ladies, listen, do not chase the man who isn't chasing you. So these CEOs would come in, power women, in love with some guy who was clearly a bit of a loser, and they had enough money, so they'd come in every week and ask the same question, and they'd get the same answer.
Oh, no.
And it became torturous for me because I don't think it's fair, when someone has their
They were just
hopes
not
on
happy.
someone
No.
and it's not going anywhere. And so I started to go back to astrology because astrology works on the person.
Yeah.
And the astrology says, this is your personality type. Here are the things that that are always going to challenge you. Here are the things you can overcome with a bit of effort. Here are the things that are going to be super easy for you, which might be being a CEO, which I'll never, run a corporation. But I'm very good at other things.
Yeah.
But can you then see, like, let's say, if you look at a chart, you'd be like, well, this is a good time for you to start your business.
1,000,000%.
This is a good time to...
do PR on yourself. Maybe
Yeah.
buy, when can you buy property? When is a good time to buy property? When is the time to market yourself? When is the time, I can see when people are changing jobs or about to lose jobs. Babies, people often want to know if they're having babies. I mean, what is sometimes coming up is you're not going to have a baby the natural way. It
Yeah.
looks like science is intervening, or
Yeah.
you'll be a mother later in life. Let's look at your partnerships. Sometimes the reason you're struggling in your partnership is, guess what?
It's not going to work.
Don't see eye to eye,
Yeah.
either emotionally, the way that you communicate. Maybe your goals aren't the same. What is someone trying to teach you in your life? What lessons do you need to learn to, I call myself the karmic soul because I'm talking about karmic journeys. I'm here to help you on your karmic journey
Yeah.
so you can get through life. No one's going to get through unscathed.
Yeah.
I was just about to
just
say,
doesn't happen.
because what about death?
So Scorpios love the topic of death. They love it. They become obsessed with murder mysteries and they find dead things around. Scorpios in astrology rule sex, and we know Scorpios love sex more than anyone. Sex, death, and transformation. So they're also very spiritual people. And it is not an astrologer's, how do I put this? An astrologer should not be talking about death. We talk about our path towards our legacy.
Okay.
And what is the legacy you leave when you pass over? And if I told you you have 80 years to live on top of your beautiful 32 years, you'd be going, hey ho, nice long life, let's celebrate it. But what are you going to do in those 80 years? If I told you you have 2 years to live, you'd start to speed things up pretty quickly, right? But I'm not going to tell you have 2 years to
No,
live.
but can you see it?
Look, it's a lot of work. I've done it on myself. So I have my own date of death.
What?
No different from a date of birth, a date of marriage, a date of having your own child, the date you move countries. It's a lot of work, and it is something I would not do for other people because it's against our spiritual.
But you can actually see it.
Well, it's a lot of mathematics.
Yeah,
You're
I guess.
fiddling around a lot with numbers and dates, and because what you're trying to do is astrology is about you're looking for the cycle and the pattern. So end of life, you look at Pluto as a planet, and you also look at Saturn as a planet. And Pluto is ruled by Scorpio, sex, death, transformation, right?
Rock and roll.
It takes a very long 248 years to cycle through the zodiac. And you look at Saturn. Saturn ruled by Capricorn, structure, ground, father time. Saturn's known as father time. And so you're also looking at certain places in the chart. You might be looking at the 4th house. You might be looking at the 8th house. You might be looking at the 12th house. You're also looking for aspects. Are they favorable or are they to your detriment? You can sometimes see how you'll pass. Will it be an accident? Will you have a long life? You can always see if someone has a long life. But people shouldn't be obsessed by death. They should be obsessed by
life.
living.
Yeah.
And obsessed by the beauty they bring to the world. And I get really excited when I do astrology. I'm really excited to do astrology workshops for this reason, because it's going to illuminate what is so fantastic about you all.
Yeah.
And how you can go out and make a difference in the world. And don't we need people to make a difference today?
Yeah.
Instead of being with the doom and gloom, if you want to die, why don't you just read the BBC sometimes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
I mean, it depresses anyone.
Yeah.
And as a woman who had terrible depression for many years, that was brought on by me listening to the rhetoric of other people and me feeling trapped in my situation because I didn't know who I was. And I didn't know where I was going and whether, in fact, I thought I was good enough.
I think a lot of people
Wow.
can relate to that.
Yeah.
So that's, yeah.
Wow. That's so powerful. Wow. I get like the chills.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on to the questions from Instagram. So somebody asked, how do you get over someone after a breakup?
Now that's very interesting. I can answer it personally. It's extremely difficult for me personally. Astrologically, we need to look at which I now sort of have to apply, what is the lesson they were there to teach you? Do we want to stay in primary school our whole life, or would we like to go to high school and on to university and out into the big wide world? And sometimes these people are there to challenge us. So what they are is a mirror. We broke up for a reason. What was the reason we broke up? Why are we still in trauma or feeling a little bit traumatized and wanting to cling to that relationship? You know, is it the hyper or the hypo arousal? Are we wanting, we can't go on without them? Or is it this attachment? And a lot of this comes from, we need, again, to look at where we came from, what our foundation of our family life was, how we communicate with people, and then what we attracted into our life. So that how we get over someone is by learning about who we are.
I love that. I like that. Okay, another question we got was also, what is the significance of a full moon in astrology?
Okay, so full moon, it's very easy. The full moon is about culmination. It's about endings, and it's about the finish. So we have a new moon and a full moon. So let's look at the full moon. Let's look at a period. What is a period about? It's the taking away of all those unfertilized eggs that didn't make a baby for us, right? And then we're going to bring in a fresh lot in a couple of weeks' time. So it's about, you know, eliminating what is no longer needed in our life.
Cleanse.
Or letting go.
Oh, it's about letting go.
Letting go is the simple answer.
So why do you put your crystals out in the full moon?
Oh, because they get energized. The light from do you know my grandmother, when I was a little girl, she'd be like well into her hundreds now, but she used to hang all her white sheets out on the full moon because she said they'll be whiter than white when you do that. And I remember as a child. So we're going right back. You can go right through the world into these old people. They've always got something that happens around the full moon, right?
So funny.
Oh, ladies, never, ever try and have surgery around the full moon, because you will, unless you want your skin to take or you want a bigger result, you will bleed more. You open yourself up to things like hematomas. Surgeons, I have surgeons who are clients, and they know this. They know this.
So they don't schedule.
Yeah, maybe if you
surgeries.
want I don't know, there are women who want their lips done, they'll end up with slightly bigger lips. But you know, women feel more bloated around the full moon, right?
Word.
You know, our boobs, our stomach. I mean, it's horrific. You know, it doesn't matter how much you're starving yourself. You're going to still carry that extra couple of kilos of water. And yet around the new moon, this is the time where your body is, you know.
Blame that double chin on that moon.
So astrology, we're all about working with the seasons and the cycles. Again, working with nature. What is nature? I mean, let's look at Virgo season, the harvest. What do people do? Naturally, okay, it's a bit messed up with climate change at the moment, but naturally it's all about the harvest. We go out. You know, in winter, if you plant something, the farmer doesn't go out the next day and pull at the shoots, right? Waiting for that food. He has to wait. The same as growing a baby. We get pregnant, it takes that 9 months to grow the baby. It takes time. So going back to the relationship, it takes time. Everything takes time, and no one's going to be famous overnight. No one's going to be rich overnight. No one's going to have a baby overnight.
Thank God. Could you
And
imagine?
really, even when they move to Dubai, they're not going to settle in overnight. It probably takes about a year to settle into Dubai, to get into your rhythm, right?
Yeah.
True.
Cool. So next question we have is, how do I know that my partner is the right one for me?
A very simple answer is you could do a synastry. A very quick way we could look at astrology, a lot of things. We could look at Venus. Where is your Venus? Where is their Venus? How do we relate in love and romance? Do we want the same things? Someone might have Venus in Aries, so they'll be sexually very attracted to you very quickly. Another person might have Venus in Aquarius, and it's going to take a little bit of, longer for them to open up to you.
Yeah.
We look at Mars, sex and anger. How do they relate to you sexually? There are people I've read for who are just not sexual. And yet there are other people that are almost like a firestorm. We always need to look at what are we looking for and what are we trying to achieve. And then we can look at the chart and say, hey, I think you've got a candidate here.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Cool. Just 2 more we can do. We have somebody who asked, what are some good ways to develop self-love?
Oh, I really like this question because I think society is moving so quickly at the moment that some people feel left behind. It's happened a lot with older people who got left behind with technology and they feel a little bit alone. And then, of course, they learn to use the internet, then they've got Facebook happening, and all of a sudden you've created this monster with the older people, right?
Facts.
With the younger people, they really, and I know they won't want to hear this, you've really got to cut right down on social media because you need to identify who you are as a woman. Like life really, I think I'm 35 in my head, right? But I'm not. And life will pass you by. And if you've got your head down on the screen the whole time, you need to spend time alone. You need to spend time getting to know yourself, which is why astrology is a fantastic tool, right? You need to travel. Travel will challenge you, as we know, depending where you're going. I mean, if you go to London and you're going to stay in, Brown's Hotel and have a great time, hey-ho. But if you go to the Himalayas or you go to Argentina or Antarctica or Mongolia, you're going to be challenged.
Yeah.
Go places where you don't speak the language.
And 1,000,000%.
And out of your comfort zone.
How do we learn self-love? We learn self-love by giving love out and putting ourselves in a situation where someone else can see and feel our energy. So it's not an easy answer. It's a very, and it's not a quick answer. Remember, go back to the seasons. It takes time. But once you find that love within yourself, my goodness, the world just really does become your oyster. If you don't like oysters, maybe your prawn or your glass of champagne, right?
Yeah. Okay, last question. How much of astrology do you think is accurate? Would you say everything is accurate?
Well, that is a loaded question. How much of life is accurate and what we read? So it comes down where I'm a practitioner. A doctor is a practitioner. Practitioners out in the world practice what they do to be the best they can do. I would like to say my predictions are around 80%, which is a pretty good average.
Yeah.
We must always leave room for uncertainty. I always know when there's uncertainty, but I don't know what the uncertainty is. So I think that's a really loaded question, and there's no such thing as right and wrong in life. It's not 2 + 2 = 4 anymore. It's 2 + 2 = 7, and sometimes it equals 1, and sometimes it equals 14. So it's about being open to possibility, and we're opening our spiritual life. Astrology is a spiritual science. And it's one that the world don't understand because the universe is still very new to us. I use the same set of criteria as NASA when they want to put a rocket in. I'm looking at the same things. I'm looking at planet trajectories, and I'm looking at speeds and what's going on. So I'm doing the best I can with the knowledge that has been given to me. Computers have made it very easy, but then it's how we analyze that information. And, you know, even in 44 years, I don't know it all. I know a lot. But I think the day I pass, I will still be asking myself. Astrologers who are in their 80s are still saying to me, we don't know everything. There is so much to learn.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think if we can get to know ourselves, our spiritual purpose and being and energy, you can make a lot of stuff happen.
I love that answer. I think that's the perfect answer, not just for this, but even for people who would compare, I would say, beliefs and science. And yeah,
It's all the same. People should have a spiritual belief.
yeah,
It's critical. It's critical to our survival, and it doesn't matter who your God is or what your belief system is, but you must have belief. Belief is in astrology.
But you can see that as well, right? Because if you think about it, like, let's go back to, obviously, we are the Vikings over here. They had a whole god system. And then they went to the UK and they believe in Jesus. And they didn't even know each other. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's just in our nature. We need to believe if we believed in
faith.
like fire or...
In astrology, there's the ninth house. It's ruled by Sagittarius. And who doesn't know a Sagittarius who doesn't like to travel or tell a really good story to have us believe in the story, which has usually been a little bit slightly embellished to make it really good fun, which is why we love to hang around them at a party. And that ninth house rules philosophy, religion, foreign lands, far distant places, and also I want to say higher education. So what I do is, back in the day, was a higher education, but when we travel, we learn, and the older we get, the more everything starts to converge.
yeah,
And when people are close to passing, you'll find a lot of them start to have a belief system. They need to believe that everything's going to be all right when they pass away. I mean, I'm personally, I have my own set of beliefs after we pass and where we go, and I never used to believe it, but now I know I believe it to be true. We have cellular memory, and we will meet our soulmates in another lifetime, our true soulmates. I don't have one this lifetime, but I know a lot of people who do. And it's like when we meet someone and we think, wow, do I know you? Have I met you before? You might only hear their voice, and there is something so familiar about them because we don't have that photographic memory. We could have been a man or a woman in a past life, but we meet them, and I've met people who just continue that journey. They meet at 14 and 15, and they just meant to be together. They're meant to continue the journey that they started before, and this is what spiritualism's all about. You must believe that, this life after death, you haven't finished your journey, you haven't finished your lessons. There will be people there to meet you in the next lifetime. I often have people come through me when I'm reading for people. Always the happy ones. Like if someone's who's loved you, it's almost like they come and say, hi, I'm here. And they'll say to you the most bizarre thing that makes no sense to me, but it's like they'll tell you, oh, make sure you bring the cat in at night, and don't forget they always get rid of their bell or something. That's not in astrology. But the message comes through very strongly as if to say, hey, you might not believe what I'm saying, but someone is there to say, please, there is a belief. I'm here. I'm with you. Trust yourself. You're guided. We love you. you're being looked after and we want the best for you.
Nice.
Phew.
Wow. So, ending this podcast, I just want to play a little quick game with you. Nothing too long.
I love a game.
So it's just a this or that. So we have came up with a few options here. So you're just gonna answer which would you rather choose, this or that. So let's start with the first one. Dinner with your first kiss or dinner with your ex?
First one.
Dinner with your first kiss. Okay. Running or skipping?
Skipping.
Skipping. Nice. Night in or night out?
Who with?
Ooh, I don't know. Yourself?
A lot of loaded questions. I like both.
Okay. Live in a mansion or live in a penthouse?
Oh, what about live in the wilderness? That's what I
I
would
was
choose.
just thinking that
Ooh.
about nature.
I don't want, you know what? If that mansion was filled with people I love and music and animals and had a beautiful garden, yeah. Otherwise, a bungalow in the wilderness, which is option C.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, a few more. Being super funny or super smart?
Being super funny is usually being super smart. It depends on the fun. I will go for super smart.
Okay.
Not academically smart, someone who can really, with very flexible mind, who can really manipulate conversation and laughter and
Okay.
Puppet master.
Cool. Being able to sing like Beyonce or being able to act like Meryl Streep?
to sing.
To sing.
I think it's a wild because I'm such a rubbish singer.
Same.
I think I could have acted okay, but singing, oof.
I wouldn't
Something
put people
else.
through that.
Something
oh my
else.
God. I've
So-
done that actually when I was young. And oh my God, we were sewing our own clothes and stuff. And then we had to go to like a festival and sing for like what, 3,000 kids?
There is nothing like it. That's moving energy through everyone's veins. I mean, Adele. Imagine if you were Adele.
Yeah.
Glastonbury, singing and bringing all those people together and everyone singing your song.
Yeah.
That is energy en masse.
Yeah.
Like unforgettable.
Yeah. Couple of few more. Water signs or fire signs?
I have to say water. Well, I'm a water sign. I'm going to go with water.
Beach holiday or city holiday?
Beach.
Okay. And last one. Dating Brad Pitt or Leo DiCaprio?
Leo would never go for me because I'm like probably older than his mother. But yeah, Brad's been to Tibet, so I could have a very interesting conversation with Brad. I reckon I could. Yeah, I reckon Brad would be my man. But then Leo's into the environment, so I would have to date one of them just for what they know. But probably Brad.
Okay.
Probably both.
Yeah. Why
I
not?
don't know. Can I do sort of half-half?
You can do anything you want. And it's like,
I'd start with Leo because, you know, he'd peel off to the 25-year-old.
Oh, yeah.
At like, 11
True.
o'clock. And he'd say, it's nice meeting you. And then you'd feel like totally dejected. But I reckon Brad would stick with you
Yeah.
all night as long as the conversation was interesting and flowing.
need to figure out what his star sign is.
And he's been with Angelina, so we'd need to know, the little...
Exactly.
All right. So that was it. It's been super, super fun to have you here. I think it's so sad that we only got this time, but I've learned so much, and I think we both enjoyed to have you. So I really
Super
hope
interesting.
yeah. And the workshop that you were talking about and that you were gonna have here in Dubai, I think we definitely both want to sign up for that because it just sounds really amazing. And I think a lot of people who might listen to this and who can, maybe it just open their eyes and ears a little bit more And
I'm going to give you the tools.
yeah,
So you can not only become, you don't want to be a pop astrologer, you want to be a smart, dynamic woman.
yeah.
And we're going to
Love
work
that.
with those energies in 2024. So thank you. I would love that.
Oh,
No,
well,
100%.
That.
I think we
so
will too.
much.
But thank you so much for coming today. We really, really appreciate it, and we really loved having you here.
Oh, bless. Well, the pleasure's been all mine, and you've been absolutely delightful. And what the listeners don't know is you have another hour of me on the way home to talk all things sparkly. And
I love this.
Well, thank everybody for listening in, and we hope to see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.